greenish, yeah.
Well, that one isn't green.
Well, is it this one is just from, well, what is the color of this one?
Who knows? I mean, this one isn't really a thing.
Yeah,
This
this one
from
was
the
pulled
blog.
from the blog, yeah.
Yeah, okay. This wasn't really that's not really the right thing. Okay, so
Okay.
just to explain it, there's an axiom at the beginning. Okay, you know
Yep.
what? Let's show an actual one that is a bit more realistic. Let me find one. Okay. Okay, well, there's a great big one that has a few things labeled, but that's there's a smaller one. Oh, there's one. Okay, so there's an axiom. Okay, that thing there is an axiom. And I guess we're not differently coloring the axioms and the conclusions. I don't think we need to. The lemmas are colored blue, and this is distinguishing two kinds of lemmas, which, oh God, this is so confusing. Just to explain, I mean, this is a bit technical, but when you derive a lemma, you're deriving it from two previous lemmas. There are two forms of derivation, substitution and what we're now, thanks to Nick, calling bisubstitution. Okay? Color-coded as the yellow and the red. Okay? Now, I think this graph here doesn't have any events in it, which is true with this graph here as well, right? But this graph is distinguishing. So in this graph, does every node have two predecessors here?
Yeah, it should.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Okay. And what is the dotted line here? The dotted line is, what the heck is it?
Well, there are two types of input to a single lemma, depending which one it is. If it's a substitution, one acts as a rule, and another one as an input, and similarly to the critical pair lemma, the bisubstitution one.
Right. But we're not distinguishing those here.
Yeah, we don't.
I mean, I think we just should decide what we're doing in terms of distinguishing them or not. And you know, we could potentially annotate the. Okay, look, listen, the just bigger picture. I think we like this color scheme, so I think we should go to using that for these. And the only question is, and these dashed lines are really pretty ugly. Distinguishing in this picture the critical pair lemmas from the other ones, I don't know. I mean, we're not distinguishing them here because, you know, it's ones that are the output of a bisubstitution will be the triangle critical pair lemmas here, right? Nick?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. You know what? We just need to. Okay. It seems like Nick, perhaps Jose, and it seems like in terms of styling, this is pretty much the styling we want to use. Make sense?
Okay. And so the idea is that we would apply that styling to the proof graph as well?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Changing the styling of the proof graph.
To be consistent. And then we would
Yes.
also add token event graph as a documented
Right.
property.
And labeled token event proof graph and labeled proof graph.
Okay.
As and then, you know, Nick, what do you think about distinguishing or not the critical pair lemmas from the other ones here? I mean, it's sort of interesting, but go ahead. Go ahead.
You mean having the same kind of bipartite nature of events?
No,
right?
This one doesn't have events in it.
Well, those are kind of as events. What do you mean?
No, these are states. I mean, these things here are like, look, this picture has fewer nodes than this picture because it doesn't have the event nodes. right?
Well, you can look at them as events or as output states. I think it's like doesn't matter.
Fine. Well, yeah, because every output state, every event has one output state after it.
Yeah.
Well, the other possibility would be to have this to change to using just the yellow and the red here, and just have essentially the events here, as you're saying. So it would look more similar to this graph. Although it's a little weird for the input because then it's a kind of a big bang event at the beginning. Look,
Right.
this is really technical, and I'm not sure this is the right meeting for this. How are we going to get the? Go ahead.
One question. Together with proof graph, we also have proof graph weighted. Do we need also weighted versions of these new objects?
The weighted thing is nice.
So we could have a proof token event graph weighted.
Talking about proof graph weighted. Yeah, we could. We could.
Okay.
But okay, what we're doing here is we're having the size of these things be proportional to the size of the lemma, which seems useful to me. And I think we should generally do that, which is a reason to not have, okay, we've got multiple different kinds of graphs here. I think, Nick, you and I should come up with a proposal for what to do with this. Because I think that having these graphs where the size of the node here is proportional to the actual size of the lemma is quite nice. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, you can also the size can also be determined by dependency count, for example, too. So
I know,
even
which is what the weighted thing. Well, the weighted thing is some kind of betweenness centrality or something.
Right. Yep. It's a centrality measure. Yeah.
I think we need to do a bit more work here, Nick, the offline, and come up with something. Because I think we've already developed a bunch of good visualizations here. We just need to feed them back into this. This is just looking very long in the tooth right now. Make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
I can join those discussions if it's useful.
That would be great. That would be great. This shouldn't be very complicated. I mean, we've already developed all this stuff. We just have to figure out, how to present it in this function. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, we might have consider something like vertex labels, arrow, and then a string name, possibly. That I don't know exactly. All right. Let's move on. Was this everything we needed?
Yeah, Jeremy and the design team are welcome to step out now if they'd like.
Well, if they have any comments about these, Jeremy, I feel like these are fine colors. Do you have?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that's the track we were on.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
feed them back in. Anything
Okay.
from you on NKS projects?
Not immediately.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Yeah, this is more about prioritizing those, and then we'll eventually circle back. So,
Okay.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Tim.
Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Holidays.
Right. So yeah, as the first bullet point says, that first input's result is confusing. There's a reason it returns false for is the 4th of July a holiday? And that is because our internal definition of a holiday is a holiday that occurs on a weekday.
Oh, that's stupid.
There is an undocumented second holiday type called holiday weekend, which will return true if it is a holiday, regardless of whether it is a weekday or weekend. So it is.
When
both
did we put this holiday thing in?
I believe this was initially developed for finance platforms, so it would be circa version 8 or 9.
This is just stupid.
Right.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
very
wholeheartedly
confusing.
agree. We have a basic proposal, which is that we should fix holiday. Holiday should be a holiday, regardless of whether it's a weekday or weekend. And then what we want to do...
Holiday, weekday, holiday, yes, fine.
Regular weekend would be a
Well, how about a
weekend.
non-holiday weekend?
That certainly works. It's descriptive.
I mean, I think it's better than a regular weekend. As
Right.
in
Yeah,
the
that was more food for thought than.
okay. What more is there to discuss here?
The last two would be if we want to add, looking at the permutations of day types, would it be useful to have a not holiday day type and a not business day day type? I think those are a lower priority than fixing holiday and adding
But this isn't even document holiday. Oh, possible. I see.
Yep, it's on a list.
Well, it
there.
also should be in a table here in the actual documentation presentation.
Yep.
Yep.
Agreed.
So the idea would be that each of these possibilities has its own negative.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good idea. But, I mean, unless you're just saying not day match to, but aren't these things used elsewhere? Like if I want a list of all weekends in the year, how do I get that?
You can do a day range. So we basically have this notion of day types. A day is a granularity, and day types are qualifiers for days. So, if you did day range from.
Is that
You
the right
probably
thing?
need a beginning and an end.
Yeah.
Why can't I have a low granularity thing?
You can have a low granularity thing. So the day functions,
Okay. So,
for example, always return day granular outputs. That's the difference between day range and date range.
but why not just have this work, day range with a low granularity thing? Or maybe it
It's
does.
a different argument count.
I think these functions precede
Mhm.
date object. So we have
Right,
to
we
know
had the
it.
same question of, if you have date interval of if you say date interval of current date year, it will give you the interval going from the beginning to the end of the year. But not all functions that take start date and end date specs are designed to take date interval in place of one of those because it moves the argument counts around. We could certainly say, we could certainly say day range of a date object will give you the implicit days from there. But then if you have a second argument, it's going to be interpreted as an end date rather than a step size.
Why don't you think that through and see whether it's well, maybe it's a bad idea. I don't know. Okay, so how do I generate all the holidays?
If you do day range of January 1st to January 1st, and then you say holiday as the third argument. So this is initializing calendar data because what is a holiday depends on your country and also your exchange if you're using a financial exchange.
How do I change to a different country?
Holiday calendar is an option. And you could change it to...
Why on earth is Turkey the first one in the autocomplete?
That is... I am not sure.
Looks wrong.
I think that's wrong. But yeah, the third one is United States, NYSE. If you were to change holiday to holiday weekend, you would see some.
So I assume that this will work with a country entity.
With an entity, yep, it will if we have exchange information for it or holiday
information.
Okay,
so if I, for example, say all countries, okay, and I say entity list of that, I'm being mean here.
Yeah, it definitely will not work with all countries. There is a project through Alan's team to expand our holiday calendar schedule to more countries.
Okay, so
is this strictly like legal holidays?
So the default would be national holidays. And so in the US, the distinction between national versus federal. You can't. So it's actually, when you say US holidays, that's going to include something like Easter, which doesn't have a fixed Gregorian date. It has an ecclesiastical date. So each of these schedules will have multiple different calendars underpinning them. So Indian holidays typically will reference the Hindu lunar calendar. Various Chinese holidays show up on the Chinese lunisolar calendar. So there is a way to specify your own holiday calendar also. It is messy and something that needs some more design eventually. But the initial focus on this, I think, was getting large exchanges. So the Nikkei is on there, the NASDAQ is on there, New York Stock Exchange. Most countries that are included on the list also have a stock exchange associated with them.
Huh.
Yeah, Japan's going to show up probably because of Golden Week in particular.
But please
Okay.
bear in mind that it's gonna be different for each year because of the weekends.
Oh yes. I was just trying to get my my kind of curiosity question of who has the most holidays and the least. Wow, France has no holidays? I don't believe it.
Yeah, that's got to be.
I'm sure, from Napoleon on or whatever, they have had a whole collection.
Maybe
Also-
there was unlucky year, everything happened on the weekends.
Oh, it's because yeah,
What's the 14th of July?
yeah. The
yes,
issue
yes.
the issue in that case is that there is a stock exchange listed for France, but no federal or no national holidays listed in calendar data.
I see. Okay,
So
so
it
this
has
is a curation
Euronext.
thing. But
Yeah, it's a
okay, but
curation.
anyway, for our purposes, I mean, is this all documented? Is this the fact that you can get the holidays out
Yep.
by
It's
okay.
not as well documented as it should be, but the holiday calendar, this is coming largely from pushes needed for updating time series. Holiday calendar and financial calculations are pretty important. And so this is one of those things that's been on the back burner, but we'd rather fix it now before we prominently feature holidays and have everyone say, well, why isn't the 4th of July a holiday next year?
Yeah, right.
So
Good. Okay, let's move on. Duplicate processing function.
So this is another thing that came out of talking about time series updates, but has larger
string options don't answer thing, but yes, go on.
Right. So basically, what do you do in a time series when you have multiple values with the same timestamp? Do you take the first one? Do you take the last one? Do you average them? Do you take them in? This option exists internally to handle that change. This is something that's come up in various functions, primarily functions that have positional data. And
right, so
each time it's gonna come
association
up.
just drops the later cases, right?
I believe it takes the later cases. It drops the earlier instances.
You're
Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to replacement, which uses the earlier cases and ignores the later cases.
Right.
Correct.
And sparse array oh, silly me.
No,
Sorry.
the same.
You did.
So that behaves like replace.
Yeah. So there's
Okay.
not a super consistent precedent, I think.
No, I think those are not horrible, but
Right.
yes,
Yeah, they're
But
different
sometimes
in
we
each
want the
case.
mean or the list.
sure. And doesn't merge have those things?
Yeah, there's a second argument for merge, right? That lets you basically specify a merging function.
And where is key collision function used?
So key collision function's an option in
So that's join across or something like that.
yeah.
But merge has it as an argument, and key collision function is
Yes, it's join
It's
across.
join across.
this is really the concept we need. isn't it?
Well, it's related to this. I think this case, the name is good. The possible values are a bit restricted. For example,
Sure.
with something in which you can specify, I want the mean, or I want the list of all of them.
Right.
Well,
Does
isn't
the
that
func take a list, or does it take varogs, or 2 arguments in this case?
That I don't know. I don't remember.
I believe it's 2 arguments in this case.
Okay. That is an incredibly lame collection of examples.
Well, welcome to Tele documentation.
Okay. Combiner function. What does that do again? That's when you're
It's like
putting,
in string templates and various other things.
but what is it? It does something rather different.
Yeah, it's a little different. I was trying to kind of take a broad swath of things where we're running into this same general problem of multiple things are supposed to go in this spot. How do we handle it?
What does symmetrized array do if you... Doesn't it like take the mean or some such?
No, I think it takes the first two. They tried to follow a sparse array, even though internally it's prepared with some also secret option to do something different.
Oh, takes the mean.
So I'm wrong.
Okay. A bit
Interesting.
funky. All right. So what will the default behavior of time series be? I mean, I think the default behavior of event series and time series should be different, right? Because event series, there can be multiple events that happen at the same time, right? Gosha, etc.
Well,
There
yes,
have to be.
yes. Well, but that's kind of the point that in the event series, I think we're gonna have the time, and then we're gonna have an annotation for this time point on the event, and then you may have put as many events as you want for that. And
I didn't understand that comment. I mean, the basic bottom line is, in an event series, there have to be able to be multiple events that happen simultaneously. Period. End of story. But for a time series, it's a function of time.
true. I mean, so still, for a given, so exactly. So if you have an input of 2 timestamps that are identical,
Yep.
what do we do? This is exactly the
But
question.
for which case? For
For
event
time
series,
series.
Why can't you have 2 events in time series with the same time?
Sure, you can, and that's what the design is. But you will lose ability to interpolate.
right?
Because
So Itai, the point is that a time series is a function of time. It is representing a function of time. An event series represents a series of discrete events. So it's a function, f of t. What is its value? If we know that f of 0, if we're given f of 0 equals 1 and f of 0 equals 2, what's the value of f of 0? Because we have many operations that assume a value for f of 0. Now, I mean, generally, if we have I don't know what, taking derivatives, integrals, whatever else, yeah, I mean, we're going to have to make a decision what the value is.
so basically, right now we take the mean. That's the current heuristic for the time series, and this is this duplicate processing function under the hood, and I think the idea is to allow users to specify that, so to let it be a known option and documented option that then you can specify, because if you say it's identity, so I'm gonna have a list and I will break the dimensionality of my values, then it's okay as long as this is known that this is gonna be the consequence.
Well, I think that will be a complicated case for you to handle. And I would say use an event series in that case. I would say you should return a single value or something consistent with the rest of the structure of the time series.
Right, but I still don't understand why you're claiming event series is any different, right?
Because
I
an
mean,
event series
if,
is
if
completely different.
it's still it's the key is still the timestamp, right?
It's not a key, it's just a time.
Right, but you so
It's not a
if
key,
you,
it's not an
what
association.
if you ask what's the event series at time 0 and there were 2 events at time 0, what do you get?
You should get both of them.
You get list.
Yeah, you
I
should get
see.
both.
You get both. And if you ask, there are no events at the times, at the time 1, say, then you get missing because there was nothing. But if you have time series and you ask what's in between, usually you would expect some answer. And
Right.
so if you cannot define the function of time for the path, you will not get an answer.
Right. Okay. So basically, we just need an option, and the thing should be returning something in the same form, same type as the individual values. And the question is, do we reuse an existing option, like merging function, for example?
I like the merging function, and then the documented, possible settings, right? The identity would be exactly to create the list of all the events that happen at the
Which
same
will
time.
break a lot of things.
Which
And
in a
otherwise,
way it's not necessarily breaking it. It will basically return, maybe unevaluated, or maybe will return missing values,
right.
depending of what's going on really
Right, but
with the
mean is a
values.
typical mean, or it could be median, or it could be something else.
Yes. So it could be. I think that the things to consider is mean, max, mean, median, of that. Yeah. We can also think about, first, last as well.
Now, a question is whether key collision function could be actually turned into merging function. I'm just because maybe not.
Well, the left, right, outer, inner values are weird
Yeah,
in
that
this.
makes sense. So I guess merging function, I mean, it's very different uses for persistent symbol and for time series, but I guess there's no reason to not to reuse that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Yeah,
right.
that certainly works for me.
Next. Okay, good stuff. I'm really looking forward to nice streamlined time series, hoping that's for 14.3, right, Gosha?
Yes, that's the plan. Working on
Good.
it.
Good. We really need it. Okay. String split before and after. Yeah,
so
this is useful. Now, the only thing would be if we could have a wrapper around the object to represent, but I kind of think, I mean, what do other people think? I think string split before, string split after makes sense.
I think it makes sense. The thing I wasn't sure on looking at it is I don't think there's really an equivalent version for lists.
No,
we
I don't think
obviously
there is.
have split, but it functions fairly differently than
Yeah,
string split.
I think this is useful. I think we should just have it, and I think the defaults are obvious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, Stephen, you were thinking whether we can add this to string split itself?
Yes.
That's what you meant before?
Yeah.
Because
By
if we
some
find a
kind
way
of-
to do it, we could do it to split itself too.
It's like a keep wrapper of some kind, but keep left, keep right.
Yeah.
Should it be a sequence split function instead? Because there are sequence replace functionality for lists.
Right, but split doesn't drop anything, unlike string split.
Unlike string split.
We do
Right.
have a sequence split.
The sequence split too.
What is sequence split? Is that some Tony function?
What is
No,
that?
I think we wrote some sequence functions at the same time.
So it looks like sequence split also drops the things that match the split pattern.
Gosh, I forgot
Oh.
this existed.
Interesting. So that would be analogous to a sequence split before, sequence split after, potentially.
Well, let me think. Is there any way with the patterns here to specify the before and after? Oh, no. I mean, this one allows you with that pattern form to determine what it's including.
Hmm.
Right? It's not putting it into the unsplit pieces, but I just don't think that's really very useful.
Yeah, I think the use cases with strings are much more obvious than the cases with sequences.
So what's the form of
Doesn't string split take rules? It's been a while since I've dug into it.
yeah,
I-
inserts val position of each delimiter.
Hmm.
But that's different from splitting.
Yeah, splitting and preserving the delimiter in an adjacent string.
Well, what does that mean inserted at the position of each delimiter?
It just means that you can say if I stay string split, and then I say, I get that,
I see.
which is useful.
Hmm.
Possibly even more useful in string split after.
Well,
So it's like
just-
the default right-hand side is nothing. Right?
That's correct. I don't see an easy way to get to the string split after with an extension of this syntax.
Yeah, not without something convoluted.
right. I mean, we could consider something crazy like, placed before and placed after
No.
Mhm.
on the right-hand side. But
Yeah. Okay, I think string split before and after seem good to me. They seem
Okay.
useful. Okay, placed array.
So this is something you'd proposed a little while ago. You said it might be silly, but we wanted to take a second look at it and just see, the notion of I have non-zero data that I want stuck somewhere inside an array, and I know the position of it. You can do that with centered array or with array pad.
I think that's fine. I'm retracting my
Okay.
comment there.
Figured it would be a short discussion, but
It is right.
so this is the
Okay.
last handful of things that we had in our queue for ILD things that we kind of need to prioritize, and I don't have a great handle on which of these are things we should kind of be promoting and
Okay.
discussing and which should be
The rule plot one. Let's just get a
Mhm.
WFR done that just
Mhm.
has the individual rule plot elements, and then you can put them together however you want. See what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? So if I say rule plot, and I don't know exactly what the design should be.
Mm.
Okay, each one of those is a rule plot element.
Right.
And it's sometimes useful to have these things individually anyway, processed in some way or another, like highlighted or whatever else. I think this is more of a WFR
Okay.
for now. In terms of, let's see, in rule plot, you know what we should do? I've got an idea. This is a good idea. Okay. We've got this kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we should make it. Okay. I'm suggesting that we go to something like which says contiguous list. And what that means is instead of returning this, return a list of all the elements.
A list of each element or step. Okay.
Right. And then I think we have lots of flexibility, particularly when Brett has fixed all the issues with graphics row and so on. Then this should just work. Okay, I think that's a good solution. And I think that should be fairly easy to do in the code. Just do it once and for all. And we have these conventions for how the thing lays out. If you don't like them, use the list form and do it yourself.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And
Seems clear.
it's not the most high priority thing, but maybe I mean something perhaps Nick could look at or somebody. So it should be pretty easy. Okay. Aye. Oh, for God's sake. No, I'm not going
Yep.
here.
All right.
No. No, I really don't want to go into this. Okay.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
this is not a.
Yeah, I mean, most of these are fairly sparse things that have been sitting for a while without a lot of detail. That was
Okay, well, I mean,
the links
growth
are more for my
lifespan
tracking.
cases. I don't know what that even means. I mean, is there something? Generalization, growth lifespan cases. I don't know what it means. So find out what it means. Ed Peg might know what it means. Ask him.
Okay. I mean, some of these have been sitting around since Todd Rowland looked at things, so they.
Well, less than a decade.
Certainly not our oldest ILD project.
I don't think this one is important.
Okay.
I mean, we could ask Ed Peg if he has an obvious list here, but I kind of think it's not important.
Okay.
This is a complicated can of worms. I think this should be a WFR.
Okay. Yeah, we do have a WFR. Jan put one together. I think there's a link on that page towards the bottom, the probabilistic cellular automata.
Okay, I think that's enough. And so long as that's referenced from the cellular automata page in the docs, I think we're in good shape.
Okay.
Oh, for goodness sake. This is... Please don't do this. Just copy the content into these things, please.
Yeah.
This would be nice, but I don't exactly know how to do it. I mean, it's just something that comes up with some regularity. And we have a format for this, I believe. It's, yes, I mean, this is something which we could put into I mean, it's not like you can't specify these things in, you can specify this by giving some complicated rule specification. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as familiar with some of the more esoteric cellular automata syntaxes.
Well, this
so
is okay.
Okay,
It's in here.
higher order.
Okay, so all we really have to do here is in the association form of this, which we have here. I think we just need to add something that says, something about, let's see. Yeah, I think what it should say is something like second order function. Okay. And what it does is it takes that the center cell, and I mean, again, this is easy to specify in the full syntax, but a bit of a mess.
We basically have a named key in the association form that would
Yes. Yeah, that
translate to
basically
output.
would be something along the lines of well, I mean, look, this is the full center cell function, but that's a big mess. Okay. And the default case would be, I think, that. So it's saying we're taking okay, let's say rule order, which defaults to 1. Well, it requires a tiny bit more thought, but you get what I'm saying. It's the center cell. We're going to have some function do you see what I'm trying to get across? It's this, you take the cell that's there and you add it I would suggest something like this second order function, and that is taking, it takes the f of new value and previous value,
Previous.
and that's what it returns. That would be my suggestion. And then
Okay.
the mod 2, we could say second order function, we could like true be the mod 2 case, or you can specify a function.
True or automatic. Yeah. Okay.
Or and second order function of none is the default, and that means it's not second order. Or alternatively, the second order function of just identity would also work because it would just give the new value. Although I'm not completely sure this is the correct order of those things. Okay, that's my suggestion for that.
Okay.
Padding. Yes, this is an annoying thing. I would love to have an option. This is something that, I mean, one ends up using array pad. Because Cellular Automaton has this nice mechanism for doing auto sizing. I mean, I don't know, is there a padding option, for example, from image processing that we could reuse for this? I don't know. Don't think it's any of those.
No.
Can we, okay, Nick, do you have any comments on this?
Well, the non-trivial case of padding is when we were implementing serrated bricks plot, for example. That's basically the appearance in the rule plot with bricks, but you have to pad it on the left with different amount for each row so that it looks rectangular. For example, that's kind of
Right.
padding.
Okay, I think this is tricky, but worth looking at, but not for this meeting.
Okay.
This is more of a, okay. All right, let's move on. Gray code. Don't we have?
We
don't have a
gray
gray
code, but we don't have a generalized version or non-canonical
We don't
version.
have gray code.
We have.
Well, didn't we WFR it?
Yes,
Oh,
I
right,
thought
yeah,
so.
Right. Okay, that's right.
I don't know how we, I mean, I don't know if there's any labeling of types of gray codes. Do you see what I'm saying? Is there an obvious canonical gray code? I don't think there is. Do we think gray code could be useful as a system function?
I think at one point we had discussed having it be experimental, and then it was kind of on the bubble there. Is it? And then we pushed it to WFR instead.
Is there, okay, somebody needs to answer the question, is there a sufficiently canonical gray code that it's worth having? Problem is that I think if we have gray code, we also have to have inverse gray code. Do we have that as a WFR?
Not currently.
Yes, we do.
Gosh, okay.
Okay. Well, that's the question. And somebody, I don't know, Roger Jovinson might have comments on this. Somebody who's used these things more often. There are definitely cases where I've used gray code and wanted to use gray code. I've always been unclear how canonical it is. Does anybody in this meeting know? Probably not.
But
So
there's
can
also
we?
gray,
Go ahead.
there's also gray matrix that one can construct.
What does that do?
It's I know I've used it in the Wolf quantum framework. So it's I used gray code function to construct a matrix. That's where it was being useful.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's one of those things where, if we're going to make it a system function, we have to do things like we have to make it like integer digits, have a size parameter, and so on. Am I making sense? I think it's somewhat useful, but I think we just need to, can we put out a bit of a call for who knows about gray code, who has used it? Make sense?
Okay, yeah. Well,
And then, but again, it's going to need another argument, which is the width, because I think many uses need that. Okay, let's move on. I haven't a clue. I don't know what that one is. Name substitution systems, I think, is somewhat useful, like the TUI Morse sequence and so on. Ed Pegg probably has a list of those. Why don't we ask him?
okay.
There's some listed in the NKS book as well.
Mhm.
I don't know what that first thing means.
I was thinking about this one. I wonder whether what we could have here is the generalized OPQ rotation. So something like
that's what I
the
think.
hyperbolic rotation with any signature, rather than this more specific
Right.
case.
But I think what we could do, I mean, this is like a rotation matrix, basically.
Yes, hyperbolic space.
Right. This is a rotation matrix, which we have for angle theta. That's a 2 by 2.
Yes, for any dimension, it would require giving two vectors, for example.
Yes.
So that you specify the plane on which that rotation
I
happens.
think this is a worthwhile function. I think this is somewhat, I mean, what would it be called?
Well, I mean, if we want to go 1 plus n, could be called hyperbolic rotation matrix. with Lorentz, I wonder what people are going to expect that you can read a velocity or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I think there is an argument that we should provide a Lorentz matrix as a special case where you do give a velocity. Any reason not to do that?
Well, the general thing would be a rotation and
Well,
so,
if we're going to do the general case, okay,
Mhm.
we should be able to do OPQ, right? Where P is, not doesn't have to be 1, neither has to be 1.
right, exactly. Yeah, Lorentz, I would expect to work on 1 plus n.
Right. Well, I think we should consider a Lorentz matrix, but we should also consider we could call it, in a somewhat annoying way, generalized rotation matrix. I assume that rotation matrix itself doesn't have the syntactic freedom to support this. And I think it would
I
actually
don't
be
think so.
confusing. It will be confusing to put it in there.
Right. So, traditional names are indefinite orthogonal group, pseudo orthogonal group, or generalized orthogonal group. So,
Yeah, I know. Right. That's why I'm suggesting generalized rotation matrix.
mhm.
That's what I'm suggesting, generalized rotation matrix.
We can start with that as a working name and check in when we have a functioning prototype. Okay.
Okay, Turing machine. I'm going to have to go in a second here. Yes, this one is so annoying. This one we should fix. This is really annoying because it's very, I think Nick probably knows what the issue is here. We just want
Yeah.
Turing machine. It just generates an error if you specify that the head doesn't move on a particular step. I suspect the code just has to have the error removed. Because I'm fine with the Turing machine going on running, if you get what I'm saying. In a perfect world, we'd have something which actually stops the evolution, but it's okay if it continues the evolution. My point is, if I say Turing machine, I don't even know how to resolve this, but I don't know how to resolve that into definite. Well, if I say, how doesn't that work?
Does it need an initial?
No,
Step?
not for the rule
No.
plot.
Mm.
Oh, I know why it doesn't work. It should give an error message in that case. It's
Okay.
too big a number.
Oh, yeah, we'll definitely pass that along.
Okay. So the point is, I should be able to give a rule where this doesn't change. Okay, let me show you what I mean. Let's see, how does it work? Yeah, let's try this. And then let me make one of those rules be a 0 there. Oh, that did work, but now it doesn't work for the evolution, I think. Maybe we actually need a termination condition, but I think this doesn't work. If I say this, and then where's the initial condition? Oh, it does. Well, is it working? I don't know if it's working. I'm not sure that's working.
Wasn't the problem was to not just as explicit list of rules, but as just integer rule? There's no way to specify the
Well,
rule.
that's tough luck. It's never going to work then.
But with this list of rules, it was always working, I believe. So wasn't a problem.
But it isn't actually terminating here. That's the problem. Maybe what we should do is this should be something like none there.
Hmm.
That's the better thing. That a rule with a none there that then just stops the evolution. And in this thing, just has some notation which we don't yet know that indicates that it's terminating.
Like an X'd out box or something.
Yes, this would be really, that's a good way to do it, to just put none there. Well, I'm sorry, actually the none could go in this one here. So I'm saying it could go, or just 2-1 goes to none would be fine. Make sense?
Okay.
Let's try
Yeah,
and do that.
I'm not familiar with the code, but we can certainly, it makes sense
Yeah.
to me
Also-
conceptually.
But the thing is that it's going to generate less than 20, right?
Exactly. Yes, it's going to generate less than 20. Right. That's correct. We'll generate less than 20. Okay, I'm going to have to go, but graph replace is a giant project.
Hmm.
Which I guess is being worked on in let's see, what is this one? Tiling fill. This is part of the whole tilings business. We're not ready for this. Okay, I think we should
Yeah, I'll circle back to Ed on those things that we figured he would be the one to talk about, and
right.
We'll pick up the
Okay.
things that need more design from there.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks all.
Okay, good stuff. Thanks, guys. Okay.